I get a sense of frustration because anytime I am trying to do technology and life, it doesn't work, doesn't matter. So I get a frustration of being, thank you, Rich. I get frustrated with the idea of being linked to a computer, and but I mean some of it's good. For example, I like many teachers, I hate teaching with cell phones, and but then I started going deaf and getting hearing aids, and now I have a cell phone hearing aid, so I really need it in class. I shouldn't my students. And then, you know, are we going to be cell phones in writing? I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. I do know that linking ourselves to one form of hardware might be a mistake. And I started, we all know Understanding Media by Marshall McLuhan. How many know that the medium is the massage? All right. Then you guys know what I'm talking about, because McLuhan is all about what are the effects. He's trying to catalog all sorts of effects. This is so bad, but this is his image of a global village. Once we're all connected, this is how we're going to tune in. It's really racist and horrible. You can sort of focus on the naked breasts if you want. But so we had a lot of good ideas, some of them wrong, some of them right. But I really wanted to bring up a conversation that's been part of this conference probably since I started in 1990. And luckily there are smarter people than I am. Some of them in this room. I heard Rich Rice earlier say, a change of identities is always what we teach. And so I'm thinking, you know, when I go to conferences, I am such a phony. I'm a great hypocrite. I can appear smarter, more academic. And it's a lot of fun. I've made a lifetime career out of it, and I don't mind doing it. In fact, I love it. But when I think of what we do here, and then I think of our name, I see a huge disjunction. And unfortunately, I see the name now more on the hypocrisy side. Because I mean, how many of us open up a computer and really work on it? Very few of us. All right, Dickie, and maybe a few of us even code. You know, that's very cool. But I think that we have a big problem, and it's getting conflated in a lot of different ways. One of the things that happened was recently there was a study produced, and it's kind of crazy. Oh, I forgot to mention. I did some thinking about this. Luckily. Claire Lauer's article in Kairos on naming is really good. I won't go there now, but I'll eventually develop this into some kind of web text, and you probably know it anyhow. But then I started thinking about this term, and then I read this study, and the title alone can make you probably guess where we're going. But this first paragraph is really what started to explode in me. You know, first of all, it's all about literary study, and English departments are no longer all about that, we hope. This discourse sees technological innovation as an end in itself. Well, even in the 90s, we were talking about interactivity and figuring out that pedagogy drives technology, not the other way around. I have to say, in 2016, technology is pedagogy. Don't kid yourselves. I mean, there's no distinction in my mind. You know, there are some premises here that are just not right. But digital humanities as the corrective for what the wild, crazy, liberal people were doing in English, or the last part is really great. We're getting, I don't know if you know this, but we're getting an unparalleled level of support in the digital humanities. I thought you'd like that. I don't know who's getting it. If some of you are in this room, great. I know, for example, when I started teaching in Pueblo in 1991, and I really just rode computers at the right time, and so I got a grant. I created a Mac lab on a non-Mac campus. I got money that a lot of other teachers were thinking they should have had. And so, you know, I can say there is some point to this. We were probably requiring more budgets from the dean and provost's office and things. But unparalleled support, come on. I just have to say STEM, and then hold out my hand and say, please, can I have some of your pennies? You know, so there's a lot of problems here in saying, you know, we're part of a neoliberal agenda, we're part of how we're going to control learning, and so all the bad stuff that we worried about in the 90s, this article is basically saying is happening. And the funny thing is that, I mean, I can see all the problems throughout the article, but then I started thinking about the corporatization of higher education. And Noam Chomsky is, excuse me, I'm a feminist, but he's the man in this regard. He's been talking about corporatization of education brilliantly. In 2011, he set up the warning. By 2014, he's saying, we're killing ourselves. And I don't think this is wrong. And I'm just going to take a moment to tell a little bit of a story about my system. I teach in the second tier system. So we're not UConn, you know, they're basketball. We are the state system, and recently we've been consolidated with 4 state universities, Eastern, Southern, Central, Western, with 13 community colleges. So we are the second tier state system, all consolidated. And this was supposed to be a great money saving and efficiency, you know, all the business terms. And we, with the exception of our first provost who got fired, who was a black man, we've hired white men of distinction. Most recently, we hired a fellow who, I'll show you his picture, very nice fellow, and actually I'm all about diversity, so you know, I can say, okay, another white man, but at least he's gay, so there's some progress there. But when I try and find good stuff, okay, but the problem is that no PhD, labor lawyer, labor negotiator. Guess what's coming up this year in my state system? My contract. So I'm going to retire at no increase and probably a decrease, which is okay with me. But all I'm pointing out is if this isn't corporatization, I don't know what is. So I feel the effects and the brunt of it. This was, if you don't believe me, this is, I just want to read this quote, or you can read it. But this comes from a former provost in the system. Many assume the next president of Connecticut State College and university system would have an extensive background in education. Some are disappointed with the recent news, but the appointment of the Governor Dale Malloy's chief of staff as interim and president for the Connecticut State College and university system has nothing to do with education. My read of the tea leaves is that the appointment is based on the primary strength of the appointee, which is collective bargaining experience, budget, and finance expertise. So I think those of you who know me, and I'm probably betting everyone has the same heart here, there's no way we're tools of administration. There's no way we're trying to make the humanities over in terms of control and computerization. But I don't know how else to look at it. And then I read an article in Inside Higher Education about this report, and it was interesting in the comments. And this first one really got me. And I wonder how many people would agree with this comment. I know you're intelligent, you're really, you know, finer than this. But if I had a gun out and said, "What's digital humanities?" Would this work for you? No? Yes? No? Someone trouble it. It's okay. All right. So it's pretty simple, and then we have the, you know, more of an academic response. The authors have proposed a progressive bed in which they want to force all digital humanities And the fact is, they have far overreached and done the enterprise a disservice. So we have that attack. So then I'm thinking, all right, so here's this horrible, neoliberalist agenda that we're part of a corporate takeover of education, and then I just, I realized, no, we're not exactly. I was thinking about Joyce Locke Carter. I'm sorry, the picture didn't translate. But we all saw her 4Cs presentation, very disruptive video. Recently in Inside Higher Ed, I read about the possible emergence of a new discipline, and the thing that got me was learning engineers. Are we learning engineers? So then I was thinking, okay, we have effects of this conference. When I go to this conference, I walk away thinking about better digital instruction. But when I use the word instruction, I start to get a little bit hinky, because we do more than that, and instruction tends to lean towards skills. So I don't know what to do except to throw it out to you. These are some ideas: composing digital discovery, digital professoring, computers and writing, digital composition and rhetoric. So I'm going to ask for 2 minutes of silence and 2 minutes of writing. I know that's dangerous, but hey, according to A.N. Whitehead, the future is dangerous, so we're all going to stand, right? So if you wouldn't mind, just play with a list of possible terms. Think about the effects of this conference on you, the experience you're having, and then come up with better phrasing. Because, hey, if we're not rhetoricians, and if we don't understand that naming is one of our key elements of taking power in the university, then I don't know if we belong in our profession. So let's be rhetoricians. Let's walk the talk, or walk the talk further.
So are we renaming the conference?
Yes, please. And you can replace both words. I started this adventure thinking about the word computers and knowing that whenever, I mean, look at it this way. If we were in the 19th century, we might call ourselves pencils with erasers and writing. Because when that rubber came into the pencil, wow, we could revise. We didn't have to cross out. So let's think about getting away, or at least, or maybe you want to embrace it, I don't know, computers and computers. But let's think about better terms. And I'll be quiet for 2 whole minutes. Oh, it's hard. Okay, take a minute or a second to finish up. keep in mind that a long time ago Marshall McLuhan said we're in a civil war with media and alphabetic text. So, Steve, would you mind being our secretary and typing the words that people say?
I was actually gonna enter some of these into Twitter.
Did you take shorthand in your correspondence course?
Well, or anyone. Does anyone want to handle a keyboard?
Oh, you mean go up there and do it?
You want
Or Nick's gonna
Yeah,
do it?
just so I can talk and not have to write and be
I was gonna
embarrassed.
tweet some of these too.
Yes, please do. So who's got an idea to start us out? Thank you, Dickie.
It's long, as usual, my title sucks, so let's just go that.
Is that part of the title?
Contemporary, yeah, this sucks. Contemporary literate praxis and learning, cradle to grave.
Say that once more.
Contemporary literate praxis and learning, cradle to grave.
Oh, hold on.
At cradle to grave. I don't know. People as old as us, that gets a little bit ominous.
Hoping to learn until the very end.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? Let's get as many as we can and then start maybe troubling it.
I like digital rhetoric and composition.
You know, Cynthia, I did too. And in some ways, if we're going to call our field composition and rhetoric, then, you know, moving away from computers to the word digital at least gives us some maneuverability with the next iterations of technology.
It also makes a nifty, like, abbreviation, DRC, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of like DMAC.
It's sort of like Rockula without the ULA.
That's cool.
Not bad. Give me some fun. Yes.
I like keeping the C and W initialism. Maybe we should be composing and working, or.
Ooh, that's not bad. And I like that a lot. And you know, I want to push back against my own problem and say, and I have to admit, I'm influenced by Donald Trump in a lot of ways, but mostly rhetorically. And wait a second. Donald Trump is a master of branding.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, Jeff Grable was talking about business in some very positive ways. And I can say I come from a business background. I was actually trained in an IBM course to sell based on two principles. Identify needs, supply benefits. And if that's not teaching, I don't know what is. So to be honest with you, you know, we have... Oh, not only I know enough about Donald Trump to say really bad things, but I really don't want to get trumped by Trump today. But I do want to say that, you know, his sense of branding is very powerful, and it depends on our goals and our effects. Are we coming to this conference for ourselves? Do we want more colleagues? I know my dream, and Dickie, this is your life's work, bringing young people into the mix. So, and you know, whenever I say, hey, we need more people, I don't say like you, it sort of diminishes us. Hey, what are we, Chopped Liver? You know, we're here, we're doing really great work. But Cradle to Death, you know, we had a great homage to Dickie and Cindy, but they're really probably more excited. If I'm correct, you're a pretty humble fellow. You're more excited about the people that have come after you and what they've done. And if you're like me, you know they've done it better. So what are we going to do? We got to come up with a better name. I like the idea of keeping C and W because we have history.
I like that too.
We have 30 years of history.
Yeah, so if it's called composing and working, everyone's like, well, what do you mean by that? So maybe it needs like another noun at the end or something.
I like the way you're thinking too, because I think like a poet with phrasing. And you know, Dickie, you were doing it too. You prefaced by saying it's too long. And so, you know, we need a word, a phrase, something I love the word praxis, because I think that it's Greek, I love it. But what else? Who has some other ideas?
I have two thoughts. One is I wonder if like literacy should be a part of this, because that seems to be a really like crucial key term across, I mean, how we think about how students learn. I mean, that seems to be a crucial term kind of coming into.
Oh, I
right
think
now.
you're so right on. Not only traditional alphabetic literacy, but computer literacy, and then how we negotiate those things. Yeah.
Harvey
yeah.
Graff
Sorry?
would blow up.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to think of him whenever I think of taking his name back to our institution.
Yeah.
He would blow up. I mean, that's just the way he does things, so. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it.
Well, and
So you'd love the idea of calling this literacy?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's just another part of the devaluing of the word in the frame and everything else. But that's his problem, not ours.
right, and you know, let me say this too. I want to encourage bullshit. I've studied bullshit. I love Harry Frankfurt's book because basically he's written a book on it and says the real bullshit is sincerity and truth, because that's unattainable. All right, it's a philosophical argument, and he's well paid in Princeton to do that. But and then I like Neil Postman's take on bullshit too, because he gives us laws of bullshit and says most of the bullshit comes from ourselves. But I can also say this, by talking, you know, I've come up with great ideas at dinner with a number of you people here, and you know, just talking around. And so I want to encourage bullshit ideas. Who got a really bad idea that they wouldn't normally say, but you're with a troublemaker, you're with an outlaw. And so say something disruptive or something funky or crazy or bad. Come up with a bad suggestion.
Well, one tongue-in-cheek suggestion I've had is, let's call it digital humanities.
Okay. or digital humanizing?
No, I mean, what I'm saying is, I mean that as a tweak in two ways. One is because, I think that the big I think that the big thing that the digital humanities have done as a quasi organization movement thing, and I'm thinking of things like Haystack, I'm thinking of things like the international conferences they have, things like that, is that they're organized, and we're not. So let's just capture that let's just capture that term and try to like replicate that for us. But they also think in terms of the tongue-in-cheek thing, because one of the big critiques that these people in this community have had of the DH community is that we've been doing this stuff way longer than they've been doing it. So, you know, that's, now obviously we can't really, that'd be like us, you know, trying to sell a product and say, well, let's call it Pepsi. You know, so there's obviously a sort of a branding issue in terms of seizing that.
But there's also an argument, yeah.
Yeah.
And well, let me suggest this too. We're thinking nouns, but what about verbs? What about active verbs?
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, that's why I heard digital humanities, but what if we're digital humanizing? That might be. But then I don't like gerunds. I don't like those ing verbs. I like active, quick, powerful.
But people
verbs.
like writing. That's the thing. And what's interesting is it seems to be the name issue seems to be more about computers than it is about writing.
Well,
And you know, look. Oh, sorry. Go
I
ahead.
don't know, it's like, I think that in 15 years, digital, we're going to be talking about, you know, digital, man, what a 2015 term that was.
Yeah.
You know, like, it seems to me like, you know, what we always have is writing, is literacy, there are terms that we keep using, but how do we make that distinct from things like, well, then why don't we just call ourselves 4Cs? So, which is
That's why I chose
yeah.
contemporary.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Debbie?
That's why I chose contemporary, because I don't know if the digital will last. So contemporary writing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wanted to avoid digital in my title. So I think it's more, when I think of this community, I think there is a community that's attentive to materiality and composing. So I don't know what that looks like in terms of a title, but I really tried to avoid even using digital because I don't know that is actually representative.
Could you tell us what you came up with?
Well, I came up with multimodal composing materiality. I don't know that I really like those. Maybe composing materiality is the best, but.
I like that.
No.
In my school, we're moving away from writing intensive to communication intensive. composing. I've always liked the term techno-rhetorician. And I'm increasingly liking the term curation, like communication and curation.
And I'll go back to Steve's talk. He's talking about MOOCs, correspondence. When you talk, I was hearing the word collage.
Collage.
And so then, do we want to reach back to the past as well as the future? So much of what we're doing, Steve's paper proves, is we're using different tools, but really applying a lot of the same principles. Certainly at different contexts, different times, etc. But
also, like this field has always been very active or proactive, and if we could capture that, there's a guy who's been coming to these meetings in Lubbock lately, and he's a pastor of a church, and the church is called Difference Makers, and he comes up and he introduces, "Hi, my name is X. I'm a difference maker." Okay, I mean that's how he introduces himself.
that's not a. How about wait a second. Difference Makers has a link to them. I don't know how many of you have read William Gibson's The Difference Machine. Pretty good book, early cyberpunk. But also, Joyce's use of the word maker, and even in the critique that I read, the word maker, and Jeff Grable's ideas last night are all about being makers, creators. So I don't know. That's pretty striking. What else?
I had expression, like digital expression.
Uh-huh.
We express so much through digital means or through written means, and I think as a group we are always trying to express things. I know that's a little hippie.
No, but you know what it is? It's also Elbonian, right? Peter Elbonian. You were saying that before I did.
Yeah.
And I should say this. One of the things I love about this conference is that people like Nick or Dickie come up with ideas that come up with ideas that are just killer ideas. So we're getting somewhere today, if only unmuddling my mind a little bit. And I have to say this. We could even trouble another word if you want, but I haven't heard from you, for example. And I know that everyone here has something they want to contribute.
Well, see, I've been thinking, well, I was using all of my INGs, so, but I think,
don't worry about me, I'm just a
because,
poet.
the idea of maker, but I had building, designing, interpreting, I had composing, I had writing, I also then had literacy, but then, I had digital, but I circled digital because I was thinking of the future because we had the web 2.0, and it's like, well, then we stopped using that and we started using something else, and but then I started listening about the communication, but then at the same time I think of how my colleagues on my campus would think about communication, because even with the idea of rhetoric, we argue, well, that you shouldn't be teaching that, that's our department, and I'm like, no one owns rhetoric. It just bothers me. I even thought about the digital humanities part because oddly enough, because I was shocked when I had a couple of colleagues in my department who Rob is one of the people who does get funded quite well for digital humanities because he's archiving all of, he's using the text encoding initiative brand, and they're like, you do this digital pedagogy stuff, right? Would you want to help us build a digital humanities certificate? And I was shocked because they're two literature faculty asking me, and usually they see me as completely separate from anything they do. So I was pretty impressed that they actually acknowledged that.
You said several things. First of all, we converge with pedagogy, and pedagogy is not a bad word here. So we probably want to identify with teaching in some ways. Also, with regards to Kristen Aroa, Cheryl, design. I'm Heideggerian, so I'll even be a poet and say, Dasein, design, man, there's a convergence there if you're into Heidegger. But the truth is, we are designing ideas more than writing them and composing them. Maybe that gets to collage. So, You run anything good with design yet? No.
How about, well, I just tweeted this, pedagogy, technologies, and design. I don't know if that makes any sense. But those words, I think that's a good point.
Say it again.
Well, I don't know. I mean, but I think that it's a good point that there is something about pedagogy is sort of one of the assumptions and I think that your point in terms of like how you got brought into the DH thing is, it makes sense, is that pedagogy is one of the assumptions of this conference that isn't actually highlighted in a title.
And I think
right? You wouldn't know it. Computers are writing. If you didn't know, you wouldn't know that meant, you know, even if you're teaching tech writing or something like that, that there's an emphasis here on pedagogy. And that could be WAP. That could be the.
And the truth of it is that, you know, remember when I started talking about effects and takeaways though, and yeah, we walk away with changed identities, changed pedagogy. We walk away as part of a community that, as was said earlier, we're about hubs as much as megabytes. So kisses and bites, I don't know about that. But you know, I was in your talk and I was thinking about domains.
Yeah.
And you know, a domain of one's own, that's kind of sweet.
I kind of hate that though.
I know. You know, listen, no one does it better than Virginia Woolf. That's just the way it goes.
We're going to rebrand. So
Okay,
I think we're all kind of brilliant but terrible at branding. If you think about branding, you said haystack, like haystack, red loaf. There are these artistic colonies or collectives that are brands that are not icky brands that we like. And so I came up with a bunch of horrible phraseology, thinking a lot of similar thoughts, and I think it all looks terrible. And I think, you know, but the brands that are brands that we like maybe brands of like poets and musicians or such, rather than
Unpronounceable symbol.
Yeah. That was a
Prince.
yeah.
Homage to we're followers of Prince.
Yeah.
We could be Purple Rainers.
If we were better at branding, we would think of a meaningful, not a person because we don't want to be, you know, a church of somebody, but like a place or something that we could gather around, and then it becomes like this collective-y kind of a thing. But since I'm so bad at branding, I don't have that word, and I don't have that place. But that's my meta thought. We're doing a lot of meta thinking, but not a lot of.
We don't have that eureka moment, but I didn't expect that, to be honest with you. I think we're building a list.
Yeah.
But you know, and you pushed away the idea of person naming. But again, I'm a poet and a punster.
Yeah.
So maybe the word, no offense, Vicki, but maybe the word self should be in our title, as an indicator to where, as an indicator to our founders.
You don't want your name associated with forever, is that what you're saying?
But maybe
Wait, even if it won't even be remembered.
What if it wasn't?
So,
what if we dropped the E?
No, the E goes in parentheses.
Right.
Oh, yes!
Did you ever have a name for your tail?
That's the ponytail, and I had to say this. I think Nick, or was it Mike and I bought it? I don't know, and I still don't have it yet.
No, Cheryl bought it,
you
but
bought
then
you bought the right for it not to be cut off.
Oh, okay, that's right. I have to empathize and say,
Come on.
So what else? I know your delimitations are right.
But I mean, is there a play? Like, I'm sorry to be so negative and to the point so medical, but I'm just saying negative things. I'm sorry. But I mean, is there then, for folks who've been around more than I have in this environment, you know, a place or idea that is like location or word-based that's not just centered on an exclusionary, like one person or something?
so the way bread loaf is
Yeah,
centered on
like
place.
do we have a bread loaf idea like that?
Well, because the conference moves every year, it's
Right.
not really.
What is okay? So then what word designates movement in that sense?
Or not, or like
Travel.
Yeah, well, we were, I think in Rich, in your session, we talked about transactional rhetoric, and there was something about transaction that I really liked, and I've just been thinking about that
I think that's right. To be honest with you, you get me right in the heart with that one, because I was trained by teachers who were trained by Louise Rosenblatt, and her transactional theory of literature, to me, is still the best criticism that came out of the 20th century. And I studied that stuff. Believe me, I read through a lot of shit.
And that suggests movement too.
Yeah, and that's the interaction. I like the word kairotic. Kairos is not only our unofficial or official publication, but in the day and age of computers, if there's anything that's really changed, it's probably the timing and delivery of information.
Maybe we should just be C&W and just not tell people what they need.
There's another problem with that. CW, creative writing.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not like we're not creative writers.
We're creative and writing.
We're creating, we're curating, we're working, we're...
Creating, curating.
Yeah.
So
It could be a tongue twister.
So they stand for.
They got torn down though.
I'm going curating in Kansas now. CBGBs, okay. Yeah.
Well, I think that one thing is, I mean, I think that there's a bill. I agree completely with the idea that there's something about the title that seems dated. And I think that most people would say not so much the writing part, but the computer part. So then the kind of question is like, well, what is the problem with computer?
Do you think computers will cease to exist?
Yes.
So neural networking?
You're better off with chips, but even those are gonna change.
But a chip, it processes, so it's a form of computer.
Yeah.
I mean, this as a computer might disappear, but computers won't.
Yeah, but it's hard for me to, I've tried to write before with things like an iPad, you know what I mean? And so there's something about, like for me, I have a hard time imagining, this interface is, although maybe it will,
I've seen students write with cell phones, the way.
That's true.
Right.
When you watch those movies in the 1940s set in newspaper offices, the old time guys did with the 2 fingers. Same thing, only thumbs instead of 4 fingers.
Maybe processing pedagogy might be an alternative. But I think that, let me give you a little bit of a story. I swore in the 80s and 90s, and I love technology, but I swore that when students could talk their papers, I was out of there. I didn't want to be in a classroom listening to students talk words onto a page that I had to read. But you know what? My students are doing it, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah, they're already doing voice.
Exactly. I mean, they do voice memos, they talk their papers, they do a lot of that. So all I'm saying is I had a really certain idea there was a difference between writing and talk, and I was teaching the writing part, and that's no longer true. Yeah. Or abolishing alphabetic text? No. But a second part of this presentation, I don't know if we have time, was that I'm also involved in troubling the word multimodal. That's nothing new. There's a great, in the naming piece in Kairos by Lauer, Jonathan Alexander, who wrote an award-winning book with Jackie Rhodes on multimodality, troubles the word as well and sort of weenies out. It's my belief that, like computers and writing sort of trapping us in time or trapping us in a hardware, that when I tell my students, let's get multimodal, as the poet, again, I hear words that don't get people excited. Well, multimedia, multi-genre, multi, and it doesn't mean that much. Cheryl's done a really good job in proving that multimodality existed way before computers. And if you, I mean Cicero, for example, he would stutter or almost cry, and he would convince people. He'd bring out the pathos that way,
Sure.
and that's multimodal. So I don't know, and I did a recent survey of my students, and I asked several questions in succession. One was, do you like to read and write with pictures and graphic images? And then the follow-up is, would you write with graphic images if you weren't assigned to do that, and links? And they would say yes, and then no. So, I mean, I'm not sure what I can do to teach multimodality, other than forcing my students to use a graphic chart to prove and bring in more statistics, or to use links consciously in their writing, like sources, where they have to integrate the source or the link in ways that readers will go in and out and back to the text.
All right, here it is, guys. Here's the term. It just came in. You ready? You ready for this? I mean, really, you ready? Yeah. I like terms that use goji, like andragogy, which is the study of adult learners, or datagogy, which is how to use data to teach. How about communigogy?
We could invent a new word.
Communigogy. One word.
And actually, rhetorically, that's not a bad.
Makes great T-shirts.
Yeah. Well, and you know, branding. Most brand names are one word.
How about with an emoji? commune emoji.
Well, maybe. Actually, you reminded me because you were gonna. I don't want to.
Oh, I was just gonna say maybe go back to the idea of being designers, because like that seems like with the multimodal thing. I don't know. It's the designer concept from Cheryl.
And I mean, there's Cheryl and Kristen wrote a book.
Yeah.
Designers,
Exactly,
writers,
designer,
with a
writer,
slash.
yeah. That's what it made me think of, because I just have been reading that.
But being writers is really sweet too for me, because that's what we're teaching our students. That's what we supposedly are. That's what we're learning.
What does E stand for?
Sorry?
What does E stand for? You say E-writers?
Being writers, right?
Being writers.
Oh, being writers, I'm sorry.
Well, maybe, you mentioned branding. Maybe what we need to do as a community is hire one of these firms that comes up with names for companies that have like. So like maybe in the future will be known as the Apricot Conference. Why Apricot? Because some marketing firm said that's a good name.
Penny go-go.
Penny go-go.
And actually, I can tell you this. I'm going to throw out a word for multimodal that I did what I call a think aloud. And in fact, I tried to convince, I had my conquest going for about 2 weeks that I was really, really keen on this word, and I was going to, upset the whole multimodal cart with a word that I didn't quite make up, but isn't in use. We all know the word vortex, right? But do we know the word vortext? Mm-hmm. And we got text in there, and then it's a scientific term, and it's about vortical flows. And I read this silly little paper that used it, it searched all over the web, and so or actually vortexology, but I have just vortex.
Apparently, it is a big data solution that's been branded.
Yeah.
It's already been branded.
Yes.
There's a writer. Well, wait a second. There's a writers group that's used that name.
Right.
And I mean, we're not making up words is cool, but stealing words, especially from a scientific concept in this day and age, we get those warm fuzzies when we're STEM-like, right? So maybe, I don't know.
Like architects, too.
Architects, yeah, I
Yeah,
like that a lot. Because that really gets designing in there, and it gets away from alphabetic text.
It changed. Oh, or is that intentional?
That was intentional.
No.
You want architecting?
Architect. The more we get one word, the better. But
Well, I think we're missing something that was in Steve's earlier suggestion, and I don't think it's been used in quite a while, is practical poultry training.
Practical what training?
Poultry training.
Poultry
No.
training, yeah.
I wrote that one down one that stood
That's
out
right.
to me. I haven't heard that as an offering in quite a
Better
while.
better than an embalming course.
And we,
Yeah.
we would be PPT, and then we would be like PowerPoint
Yeah.
only human.
Find words that fits the
I'm
STEM
sort of chicken on that
acronym.
one.
Yeah.
What else?
Well, I mean, the other thing,
Chicken.
it's interesting to this way that, so I can go back to the terms computers and writing, and in my program is called written communication, and we have discussions once in a while, and many of my colleagues do not agree with this, but I often say, we should just call it writing. Because the thing is that that's a very loaded term that means something to people outside the field that is different than what it means to us. And yet, if we call it writing, we can satisfy them, and we can satisfy ourselves.
I think it's dangerous to move away from that word. I think it's something we can debate about.
Yeah.
Because it means different things to us than others. And so contemporary writing is CW.
Well, that's not bad.
Hey, that's not bad either.
That's how I abbreviate it in my emails anyway.
I like that a lot.
My files.
I like that.
But it's not very.
Well, I mean, the scholarship in the field tends to gravitate towards whatever is new that year. So when blogs came out, everybody wrote about blogs. Now multimodal's out because it's easy to do. So the field tends to go to what's new at its own debilitation, because there's a lot that gets left behind that wasn't studied enough yet.
Yeah.
So it's good to be contemporary, but you also need to have some work that extends back. I don't know how many times you come and you hear a reinvented wheel.
Oh, a few, yeah.
I think probably what Michael Day was speaking about, the first thing was about that.
Yeah.
He was pointing at a 1970s discussion. Was that 70s?
That was from '93. He was reading from the first online conference from when Bill set up that.
But it's very much kind of contemporary in a lot of ways. So yeah, I agree with you. I don't know. So contemporary wouldn't work then.
I don't know though, or maybe emerging writing, because we really since we yeah. Then
How about contemporary writing technologies?
Yeah, technology hasn't come up yet.
Yeah, I mean, like contemporary writing technologies.
I like that too.
So you could have, and then you can have the logo be capital C, W, and a little T.
Try and just do me a favor. Just also write emerging writing technologies. No, obviously, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this list home and play with it.
Well, here's another. If you want to add another name, that we've vexed around with the term multimodal for a course that we created, and there was debate amongst us again in the program where I actually kind of realized that multimedia had kind of I don't know, it seemed like very dated term, you know what I mean? Just very quickly, and then we did and multimodal is a term that actually doesn't make sense to anybody outside of, like you wouldn't go talk to some sort of tech writing firm and say, well, we're preparing students for multimodality. They'd be like, what the hell is that? We settled on new digital media. The course is writing new media.
And I think I mean.
We just said new. Anything
I know.
new.
But then when we use that, it's Gunter Kress and trying to freeze what is the new media, or Marshall McLuhan.
And our campus, media was actually the bugaboo term, because basically, and that's the other thing too about all these terms, is the way that people sort of like, piss a circle around them, because, my campus, a term like media makes the people in communications get all.
Right, it's their turf.
Hey, you
We
need to
have a
teach
fight
media.
about all of these.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Or we could get corporate, we could be media managers.
Learning engineer.
Right, same thing. And again, I mean, we can be snarky, but I don't think we can short sell the technological scientific connection and the direction. Remember, I said technology is pedagogy, and that's really, when we come here, we're learning about new technologies and how to teach them to our students.
Expressive modalities?
Okay, I like that too.
Or expressive technologies.
Yeah.
Technology is nice because it can be anything. A pencil's a technology.
Right.
Your voice is a technology.
Clay.
Yep.
Clay.
Well, that goes back to
Or
some
Rich's
materiality
sheepskin.
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
I think technology is much better, actually.
Can I ask you what you toss out? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but I want to brag to my wife that everyone in the session helped me, because she's tired of helping me.
I was actually thinking of this technology angle, but I was thinking of writing in a technological society.
Okay.
I was thinking of Jacques Ellul's confusion between technique and technology.
And as a poet, I might even write in society. So I think you've given me some really good homework, done most of the thinking and talking for my session, and luckily we've had Steve to give us some good history and background. So I'd like to thank Steve and Nick Nick, this is definitely improvising because the screen behind me really is another presenter. So let's give.
Let me save this file. I wasn't saving as I went along. That's the big rookie mistake.
Yeah, and now you can put it on your CV too. So let's give Steve and Nick a hand. And yourselves. And have a good rest of the conference.
Yeah, the conference ends today too. That's when the bar opens.
Hi. I have a question for you.
Sure.
I studied the